One day when I was in 8th grade, I remember a classmate who, for some reason, had a graphing calculator in middle school. Compared to everyone else's scientific calculators, his felt like a supercomputer. It had actual graphics. It could draw a line on the screen. You could use X and Y variables. At the time, there wasn't really any reason for us to have a graphing calculator over a scientific one. We hadn't experienced the true horrors of math yet. But what caught my attention the most from my friend's TI-84 Plus was not its math functions, no. It was that he had Doom downloaded on it. Hey, I appear to have found myself inside my graphing calculator. You might be wondering how I got myself trapped in here? Yeah, me too. I think I had heard about video games on calculators before that day, but actually seeing it in person was crazy. I was one of those people who would just fiddle with my calculator during class out of boredom, but this was crazy. I wondered how such a feat was even possible. But this moment would soon be forgotten by me for a couple years, until 10th grade. Now is when we finally made the upgrade from scientific to graphing calculators for math class. And that was when I found out that, damn, math is expensive. But I got the TI-84 Plus anyway, because, well, it was the same calculator that everyone else was buying. I didn't really put any thought into it, but in the first few weeks of school after getting used to the new calculator, I decided to see what this PRGM button does. And boy did I find out. Programming on the TI-84 Plus is actually more simple than it sounds. All the functionalities are built into the calculator, so all you have to do is learn the programming language. And TI Basic as a programming language is pretty simple. It's easy to get started, and there's a very convenient wiki if you need help. And that's all I needed in order to completely lose my ability to pay attention in class. Since then, I've made a lot of games on the TI-84 Plus, as well as the more powerful TI-84 Plus CE. And since I decided to publish these games for you to download, why not showcase each of them so you could see what you're in for should you decide to play them. Some are a little more than tech demos, others are very simple arcade type games, a few are remakes of pre-existing games, and others are stupidly long, complex games that require downloading multiple programs to fully experience, and others are Sonic Spinball. And I suppose that while I'm here, I might as well talk about all the games I've made. It helps pass the time, I guess. I'm going to be covering pretty much all of the games in order of creation, at least based on my memory of when I created them, with the exception of the very first game I made and its enhanced version later on. Why am I leaving this one out? Well, I feel like it deserves to be saved for a future video, perhaps one that may come around on Halloween. If you know, you know. So, starting with the second game I made on the TI-84 Plus, let's talk about Movement Test. Yes, that's the name. In the game Movement Test, you play as the letter P. Your goal is to use the arrow keys to collect the letter G to gain points. However, you have to watch out for this guy. The letter B chases you down constantly, and the more points you get, the faster both you and the B move. But the game isn't really difficult until you get to 10 points. Whoa, gameplay! Now you have two Bs chasing you down on top of a second G that you can chase for more points, but it runs away from you. It's just a game of seeing how many points you can get before you get caught, just like tax fraud. Very simple to understand and play, and it's fun to try to juke out the AI. It won't be long before you notice the slowdown though. It's funny, because the lag comes from the game attempting to speed up you and the enemies in order to increase difficulty, so the game speeding up actually slows it down. Slowdown is my biggest enemy in most of these games. It's annoying, it makes movement hard to track, and it makes the controls very janky. I guess that's what we get for trying to play video games on a calculator. But moving on, we have Number Drop. This is a basic falling tiles puzzle game similar to Tetris or Puyo Puyo. I had originally wanted to make a port of Dr. Mario, but that game has pills made of two pieces that can break apart from each other. I couldn't figure that out, so I made a slightly more unique puzzle game instead. The game has 4 different versions. I'm currently showing footage of version 2, but the main gameplay is still the same between them all. Numbers fall from the top of the screen and you can control where they land. Your goal is to have 2 of the same number adjacent to one another, either vertically or horizontally. Doing so clears both numbers and gives you a point. The numbers fall faster the more points you gain, rinse and repeat until you lose. There's a bit more to it than that. You're told what numbers are going to fall next so you can plan ahead. You also have a chance of getting bombs, represented differently depending on the version, which deletes all numbers adjacent to it. It's useful for making comebacks late in the game. Now let's go over the differences between each version. Here's number drop 1. Yeah, it looks pretty bad. The whole screen flashes whenever a number moves, the E in next does that for some reason, and the zeros taking up empty space make it really hard to tell what's going on. So version 2 fixes all of these problems, overhauling how the game handles visuals as well as making the board wider. Though now there's a new problem. You see the board is expanded from 5 tiles wide to 9 tiles wide, and there are only numbers 1 through 9 in the game, with 9 acting as a bomb, so it doesn't really count anyway. And what you're left with is a game that is stupidly easy. It's almost impossible to lose. Hell, it's even easy to never have the numbers stack higher than the bottom layer. So how do we fix this? Well, we'll add letters, of course. Number drop 3 makes one major change. Now, instead of the game having 8 possible digits plus a bomb, there are now 19 possible digits plus a bomb. 9 now acts as a digit rather than a bomb. Numbers 10 through 19 are represented using the letters A through J, and K is used for the bomb. Now you have to actually try, and things do get pretty hard as the game speeds up. There is a noticeable amount of slowdown compared to version 2, which is because of the game having to convert the digits stored in the code to the letters that get displayed on screen. But it's not that bad. I mean, most of my life I've had an FPS of like a third of a frame per second, so it's not that bad. Version 4 is basically version 3 again, but with a random set of tiles pre-placed at the start to make the game much harder. It's great if you want a challenge. Overall, I'd say that you should definitely play number drop 3 and 4, maybe try out version 2, and stay away from the original. I'll upload all 4 of them though. The last game I made for the TI-84 Plus is a demake of Minesweeper. You know Minesweeper, right? It's a puzzle game that's been around for a while. Your goal is to clear the board one spot at a time while avoiding hidden mines in certain tiles. You have to use the numbers displayed on the tiles you dig up to find where the mines are. The number you see tells you exactly how many mines are touching that tile, no more, no less. You can place flags in spots where you think mines are to help you keep track of them, and if you clear the whole board without digging up any mines, you win. So I ported this game to the calculator. It works mostly the same. For the cursor, the game uses 2 arrows on the left and the bottom of the screen. Where the arrows meet is the spot you're selecting. The board is pretty small, but there are multiple difficulties to choose from, each having a certain range of mines that can appear. The board is randomly generated every time as well, because why would you play the game if you already knew the solution? There are some major differences from the original game, however, which had to be implemented due to limitations. In the original game, your first click is guaranteed to be safe no matter where you click. The game generates the whole board on the spot, using your first click as a starting point to have a sort of island of safety where there aren't any mines around. This isn't the case here. You can be off to a very unlucky start and immediately lose the game. The original game also has a functionality where clicking on a tile with 0 mines touching it reveals the entire island of safety all at once. I also couldn't figure out how to implement that, so you have to manually dig out those islands if they even exist, which they sometimes don't on the highest difficulties. To make up for this, the board generation places 0 mines on the edge of the board. Since the entire edge is always safe, the main strategy becomes digging around the whole board and working your way inwards from there. It's still pretty fun, because Minesweeper is already pretty fun, so I recommend playing this one. It's probably the best game I've made on this model of calculator. But that was it for the TI-84 Plus. I had ideas for other games as well, but I was quickly met with a major roadblock. This calculator just isn't powerful enough. I mean, I don't really know what I was expecting. It's not like these things were meant to have games on them. And while it's impressive to see what it's capable of, calculators are really just meant to do math. Hell, when I tried to make a much more complex game, the calculator ended up crashing and completely clearing RAM. 3 times. That certainly sucked. Thank God a friend of mine had my games backed up on his own calculator, or that could have ended pretty badly. So for a while after making Minesweeper, I didn't make any new games. I just used the calculator for its main purpose. Shocking. I thought that my days of calculator programming were over. at least until the next year. In 11th grade, I started taking AP Calculus because I felt like I wasn't torturing myself enough already. And with this much harder class came with an excuse to buy a newer, more powerful calculator. So I got the TI-84 Plus CE. Despite still being a calculator, this bad boy felt like something from the future. Please ignore the fact that this was in 2024. A screen capable of displaying more text at once, including color, I never used that, as well as much more storage and memory to work with. I specifically got the Python version of this calculator, which allowed programming in Python as well as TI Basic. Now, I already know Python pretty well, and it's much less limited than TI Basic is. So, did I ever end up making anything in Python on the calculator? No. Things ran much faster on this calculator, which created a bit of problems with my older games, which were definitely not designed for this kind of speed. So the first thing I did on this newer model was update my older games with deluxe versions. I first updated my very first game, the one that will not be discussed in this video, but after that I made a deluxe version of Movement Test. There isn't really much change to the original, only expanding the bounds of the game to use the new larger screen size. It's pretty much the exact same game besides that, and I didn't even make a deluxe version of Number Drop. But I did make a deluxe version of Minesweeper, and this update brings a lot more changes. So what's new in this version? Well, the board is much larger, growing from 9x7 tiles to 18x9 tiles, more than double the amount of the original. Because of this, there are 2 new difficulties added, with a lot more mines. The original hardest difficulty, Expert, would usually have about 12 mines on the board. The new highest difficulty, just called Pain, can have more than 60. In fact, Pain is so hard that I've actually only beaten it once as of writing this script. This difficulty wasn't even meant to be possible. I just kept adding more mines because I thought it was funny. And there's actually a chance, a very high chance, where the board generates in such a way that you can't win without having to just guess where a mine is at least once. Is it actually beatable, however? Okay, I'm gonna have to guess. 1, 2... Guess. No, look at that! There's just a whole wall. And I would have had to end up guessing anyway. I guess here. We were 3 spaces away. I'm gonna guess. No. 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 2. There's 1 mine. There's 1 mine here. Yo. Is this the run? See, is mine there? Yes! Oh my god! I did it, and in a tiny bit over 500 time units. Yes! Yes, I did it! Okay, so yeah, it's possible. You can beat it. It just took like an hour, so, you know, but you could do it. Yes, it is. But I seriously wish you luck if you try to beat it yourself. You'll really need it. It's one of the hardest challenges that my calculator games have to offer. And as an added bonus feature, losing the game now shows you the positions of all the mines on the board, just as a quality of life change, so you could see how close you got before I took all your joy away from you with a 50-50 guess. It was about time to push the hardware a bit further, however. I had mentioned previously how I tried making a game on the 84 Plus that ended up crashing and wiping the calculator due to something. I never actually figured out what caused the crashes, but I imagined it was due to the game's size. But now, with this newer model, that game can finally be completed. Welcome to Mario Party. By far the largest game in terms of file size, this is a full demake of Mario Party, at least in concept. You all know what Mario Party is, right? Up to 4 players take turns rolling dice and moving around a board, collecting coins in hopes of using them to buy stars at special spaces. The player with the most stars at the end of the game wins. Each time a turn is completed, the players compete in a minigame for extra coins. It's a bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic premise of Mario Party. Something ruining friendships since 1998, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Since board games, even virtual ones, tend to have players taking turns, I could actually implement multiplayer. Just have the players pass the calculator around when it's their turn, and design minigames around that as well. This remake is for 3 players and only for 3 players. You can't play by yourself or with just one other person. You need exactly 3. So good luck getting your friends to try this out with you. One of the biggest features of this remake is randomly generated boards. The real Mario Party games have preset boards, but I didn't feel like doing that, so the game instead randomly generates a board every time you play, and tweaks some of the rules of how Mario Party plays to account for this change. Normally, players are forced to move in one direction. There's usually options to take different paths throughout the board, but it's not like you can just turn around or anything. In the calculator version, you can turn around. You can move up, down, left, right, anywhere as long as you have enough moves left. The final space you land on at the end of a turn can have different effects depending on the number marked at that space. A 1 gives you coins, a 2 makes you lose coins, a 3 is an event space with a big list of special events that can randomly occur for landing on it, and a 4 marks where the star is. If you land exactly on a star space and have at least 20 coins, you buy a star, and the star space moves to somewhere else on the board. That event space can really change things up. It can warp players back to the center, divide everyone's coins equally, and on very rare occasions, even steal players' stars and give them to someone else. Just like in the real Mario Party games, a minigame is played at the end of each turn for extra coins. These minigames are each separate programs that you'll need to download, but as long as they're on your calculator, the game should load them automatically. There are 11 total minigames, with 10 being randomly selected from at the end of most turns, and the 11th minigame always being played on the final turn of the game. Most of these minigames are based off either a pre-existing Mario Party minigame, or from other games, and can range from luck-based games like Bowser's Big Blast, to skill-based ones such as Spin Cycle, to reaction-based games like Fake Out. These are all pretty fun, but if you don't want to play these minigames, either because you don't feel like downloading them or because they take too long, then there's the option to turn off minigames entirely before starting a new round. Speaking of customization, there's also the option to decide how many turns the game should last for, ranging from 10 all the way to 50. I don't even think the calculator's battery can last 50 turns, but if you're into that, there's the option. There's even the option to choose between 3 different board sizes. There's also bonus stars at the end of the game, allowing for players to make last-minute comebacks if they have the right stats. And the final 5 turns changes things up a bit, modifying the spaces to be more dangerous while doubling coin gains and losses. Overall, this remake of Mario Party is one of my best games, full of replay value and the classic Mario Party shenanigans that we know and know. I absolutely recommend playing this one, and I'm not just saying that because I made it. Most of my games are incredibly simple and only really exist for the 5-minute novelty of, wow, I'm playing Minesweeper on a calculator, isn't that neat? But this is a complete game, one that's actually fun rather than just being neat. Alright, so now that Mario Party's done, now what? After making something that big, I needed a bit of a break, so I decided to make a basic clicker game. Maybe you're familiar with Cookie Clicker or games in its genre, maybe you're not. These games usually consist of you clicking on something, and then a number goes up. You can buy upgrades to make the number go up faster, and that's pretty much it. Of course, clicker games usually are more complex than that, but for generic clicker game, yeah, that's pretty much it. You press a button, and a number goes up. There's a shop where you can buy some upgrades, and a rare bonus that can happen where your points double, but that's the whole game. After that, I decided to make something a bit more complex. Gridlock is a game that uses 2 calculators and a link cable for separate screen multiplayer. Now, I don't have 2 TI-84 Plus CEs, so I can't actually show you the whole game in action, but I can still show the multi-page tutorial. Multi-page tutorial for a calculator game. Gridlock works like this. Each player starts on opposite corners of a grid. Their goal is to be the first player to reach the center. There's also an AI enemy that wanders around the grid as well. If a player enters the same room as another player, or the same room as the enemy, then they'll lose. The problem is that you can't see if something is in another room. There can be an enemy directly below me and I wouldn't know it, unless I used one of my tools. You can use scanners of different strengths to check if a room is occupied, and you can lock or unlock doors between rooms to block off certain pathways. After you use the tool and then move to a new room on the grid, then it's the other player's turn, then the AI's turn, and that repeats until the game ends. It sounds pretty cool in concept, especially with the 2 calculators connecting to each other. Most people just use the cable to send programs, and don't really know that the calculators can also send and receive data from each other during those programs. However, this process is very slow, which limits our options to turn-based games like this one. On top of this, the game was just poorly designed. I don't mean that I programmed it sloppily or anything, though I probably did, but that the mechanics are heavily flawed and basically guarantee a win for player 1 every time. If a door is locked, you can just unlock it and then immediately move on the same turn, and so then the game just comes down to whether or not the AI ends up stumbling into one of the player's rooms. So in practice, the game ends up not being very fun at all. I don't even think I'm going to publish this game, at least until I make some major changes to it. In conclusion, don't let me make anything original ever again. Well, that game didn't go very well, I thought to myself. Perhaps I needed to change things up a bit and try making a game using the graph screen. All of my games up to this point use the home screen of the calculator, the screen you type numbers on. You know, this one. But the graph screen is used to display functions and can also be used to draw basic shapes. Interesting. So I tried making Sonic Spinball. Yeah, I didn't think it would work either. For some reason, certain functionalities were just not working properly, like at all. I mean, certain lines in the code acted like they weren't even executing. What do you mean there's no pixel at the bottom of the screen? There's a whole line of pixels right there. So maybe the graph screen didn't have as much potential as I hoped. But surely I could make something on it, right? Riveting gameplay. That's right, Pong, the first video game ever made, arguably the simplest video game ever made, now playable in math class. It's literally 2 lines, a dot, and 2 numbers. You know what this is, it's literally just Pong. I guess there's more to say about it than that. With the graph screen, I can manipulate individual pixels, so the movement of the paddles are actually pretty smooth. Well, the movement itself is still choppy, but there aren't any flickering or jumps between positions. The ball changes speed whenever it hits a paddle, and the AI opponent is pretty well made. I had to find a balance between the AI being beatable without being just a complete pushover, and I think I did a pretty good job at that. So while this game is literally just Pong, it's a pretty decent version of Pong. After making Pong, I wanted to make another demake of an arcade game. I mean, arcade games work the best for a calculator. Simple experiences that can be addictive, satisfying, and encourage heavy replayability. Since these games were already designed for hardware so weak, they can be easily replicated on less powerful devices. Anyway, I made Pac-Man. You've probably noticed the formula with my demakes by now. Faithful in concept and general gameplay loop, with a couple mechanics changed or removed due to limitations, but with a new feature or 2 added to make up for those compromises. Pac-Man is no different. Go through a maze, collect all the pellets to win, avoid the ghost trying to kill you. Same concept as the original. The compromises this time are a lack of power pellets, so you can't fight back against the ghosts, as well as there being only 2 ghosts in the maze instead of 4. Pac-Man must have called up exactly half of the Ghostbusters. The 2 ghosts that are here have unique behaviors, however. One of them just wanders around randomly while the other deliberately chases down Pac-Man. The game has 2 speeds, with the fast speed definitely being much harder due to less time to react. Screen wrapping still exists, where reaching one end of the screen teleports you to the other end. The ghosts can do it too, making the edges of the maze very dangerous. You may have noticed that the maze looks different in the footage I'm showing. That's because of the biggest new feature, randomly generated mazes. Every time you play, the game generates a brand new maze, while applying multiple checks to guarantee that the maze is still completable every time. This forces the player to have to change up their strategy every game. It makes the game a lot more replayable. There are 2 more games left to show, but I'm going to go out of order for a second and talk about the very last game I've made, which is a battle demo for Mario & Luigi. I've never been a fan of turn-based RPGs in general, but the Mario & Luigi games always stuck out to me. The action commands, as well as controlling 2 brothers at the same time, made things way more interesting. So here is a simplified version of that battle formula, where you do like 3 things and then you get bored. Mario and Luigi each get their own button to perform their actions, and you have multiple choices for what to do on each of their turns. Each type of attack has a specific pattern of action commands to perform more damage. For jumping, you press the button right before you land on the enemy. For the hammer, you press the button right when you see an exclamation mark over the brother's head. The bros attacks are more complex. You have to enter a button combination with the correct timings as displayed on the bottom right corner. You even get a little animation to show what you're actually doing during the attack. Doing bros attacks costs BP, which you can replenish using the syrup. You also have mushrooms to replenish health, but you get a limited amount of each item. The enemy does the same type of attack every time, but it's a unique pattern at least. You just avoid the bullets by jumping. Rinse and repeat until either the enemy runs out of health or both bros run out of health, either one taking place after like 3 to 5 business days. When you strip down the Mario and Luigi battle system to this degree, there isn't really a whole lot to do. You can try each type of move, dodge a few attacks, maybe win a battle or two, but that's about it. This isn't really meant to be a full game, more of a showcase to test what I could do. I don't think I'm going to upload this one, at least for now, since there are some major bugs that I don't really feel like fixing at the moment. Well, don't look at me like that. The game I made immediately before this one, and the last game I'll be talking about today, is certainly a full game. Donkey Kong 94, the forgotten Game Boy continuation of the classic arcade game, now has a stripped down version for the TI-84 Plus CE. DK94 starts as a port of Donkey Kong but quickly reveals itself to be more of a puzzle platformer, taking the mechanics of the arcade game and expanding them greatly. For some reason, Nintendo still hasn't re-released it for Nintendo Switch Online, but now you can at least play it on your calculator. Okay, stop for a moment. I wrote this part of the script on March 5th. It's now March 6th, and Nintendo just announced that DK94 is coming to Nintendo Switch Online, so yippee. It's really only like the Game Boy version in spirit. Most things have significantly changed, including all the level designs and most of the mechanics. The game is split across 6 worlds, each with 5 levels. Each world is also a separate program, which was done because there was no way to save progress. I could use a variable to track save data, but I like avoiding that sort of thing in my games because of the very limited amount of variables I have to work with. I didn't want to worry about save data getting overwritten by another program, so I just do away with saving entirely. Start from whatever world you want, I don't care. Your goal as Mario is to reach the star in each level. You can walk, jump, handstand, and somersault, and you need to use those 4 moves to get past all the traps on the way to the end. And there's a lot of traps to deal with too. Spikes, falling debris, vines, springs, moving platforms, on-off blocks are all things you'll have to deal with in these levels. Hell, you can even run out of time if you're too slow. This game's pretty unforgiving. One hit is all it takes to kill you, and if you run out of lives, you gotta restart the entire world. Your biggest enemy is probably all the slowdown, however. With so many objects moving on screen at once, it can get pretty bad. Some levels have like 3 or more moving objects at once, and when I try to press right, by the time Mario actually moved, I became a grandparent. The final level of each world has you face off against Donkey Kong. Jump on his head 3 times to win. He even throws barrels at you the whole time. The final world is Donkey Kong in every level. You only have to jump on him once per level though, chasing him further and further up the tower. But if you've made it this far, then surely you can beat this final challenge. And there is certainly nothing else after the final level. If you were to only play one of the games that I've made on this calculator, you should probably play this one. I'd say it's my best. And you can play this game and all the others I've made right now. Use the link in the description to download the game files. You'll need the TI Connect app on your computer and a link cable to connect your calculator to your PC. But after that, go crazy. Just make sure you have the correct calculator, and I'm also not responsible for anything blowing up at any point. Not that that's gonna happen, you know, just to be safe. I'd say that I'm pretty much done with calculator programming, at least for now. I don't really have any new ideas. Again, there's still that one game I never talked about, nor its deluxe version. I'm not releasing that one yet just because, again, I want to save it for another video. How soon that will be, I'm not sure, but I promise that you will eventually get to see it. Besides, the file size of this script is already as big as my largest programs, so maybe you've heard my voice enough today. So for now, that's going to be all. I'm still stuck here though, which kind of sucks. I'm also not too sure what kind of calculator I'm in anyway. What the hell is a TI Nspire?